Will South Korea fall to communist North Korea? South Korea may be facing a betrayal from within. I'm Chris Chappell, and welcome to this special episode of China Uncensored for my amazing viewers in South Korea. 안녕하세요. Do you like your freedom? Your liberal democracy? Your K-pop? Imagine losing all that. According to some experts, that is a real possibility in the upcoming elections in April, because North Korea's communist ideology has been gradually infiltrating South Korea. I was hoping to visit South Korea in April for the elections, but thanks to the CCP virus, that trip has been put on hold indefinitely. But since I can't be there in person, I did the next best thing under quarantine. I sat down over Skype with Gordon Chang, author of Losing South Korea, to talk about what's at stake. Thanks for joining me again, Gordon.
Thanks so much, Chris.
So you're the author of Losing South Korea, and in it you say South Korean President Moon Jae-in is trying to make his country more compatible with North Korea. What does that mean?
President Moon Jae-in's overriding goal is to unify South Korea and North Korea. That's clear from his speeches. It's clear from his policies. What he wants to do, unfortunately for him, is prohibited by a raft of UN Security Council resolutions. So, for instance, he can't invest in the Kaesong Industrial Zone, which is just north of the demilitarized zone. He can't put more money into the Kumgam Tourist Zone. And President Trump has, and this is a good thing, has prevented Moon from doing what he wants to do. But clearly Moon, if left to his own devices, would merge both North and South Korea. And that could actually happen, Chris, especially if Moon gets a more than two-thirds majority in the National Assembly on April 15th in the national elections. If he gets that majority, if you look at the South Korean Constitution, he's got a clear path of merging South into the North. How could the democratic country of South Korea be merged with North Korea? That seems incredible. It seems incredible, but the way it could happen is that the Constitution of South Korea says that there shall be a referendum of the people of South Korea in which they only need a simple majority to approve a constitutional amendment. If the National Assembly by a two-thirds majority approves a constitutional amendment. Moon is actually very close to that two-thirds line in the National Assembly with his Democratic Party of Korea and its allies. Moon's really unpopular right now, but he is united and the opposition conservatives are divided. So it is not inconceivable that Moon can actually increase his majority in the National Assembly above the two-thirds line. And remember, Moon counts the votes in a referendum, so he very well may be able to get approval for some sort of unification of South and North Korea. It is not inconceivable. I mean, North Korea has threatened to turn Seoul into a sea of flames. Why is there any desire to get closer to North Korea? Well, Moon is, I think, a North Korean. He is anti-American, pro-China. And he wants his legacy to be the unification of the two Koreas. He can do it in the National Assembly elections. And we also know that a lot of his advisors, senior advisors around him, are the Jusapa, who believe in the overthrow of the South Korean government, take over the South by the North. These guys have not repudiated these views. And Moon, I believe, agrees with them. So it is not inconceivable that, within a year or so, that South Korea will be gone, which means that April 15th may be the last elections in South Korea. Geez, that's a lot to absorb. Is it just a nationalistic desire for unification, or is it actually an appeal of communism itself? I think it's probably both with regard to Moon. Now, most South Koreans, they in general would like the idea of unification on some terms, probably not the way Moon sees it. But, I'm not saying this is probable, Chris. I'm saying that it is much more likely than most people think, largely because you do have a unified government, and you have, although the conservatives, I think, are generally popular, more popular than Moon, nonetheless, they come into this election divided. They're fighting among themselves. So in that type of situation, an unpopular president, deeply unpopular president, can actually prevail, increase his majority in the National Assembly, and push through a constitutional amendment to abolish South Korea.
How are Moon Jae-in's policies weakening civil society in South Korea?
Well, we have seen, for instance, an attempt to reimpose authoritarian rule in South Korea. So he's taken over the big broadcasters. He's imposed censorship, tried to do that, especially social media. Opponents are being jailed. They're being harassed with libel suits. He's allowed pro-North Korean thugs to run free in South Korea doing what they want. So democracy is very much at risk. Of course, there's a large majority of people who don't want communism in South Korea, but they are not as organized and they don't control the Blue House. So they're at substantial disadvantage. Moon's policies have been unpopular even before the coronavirus epidemic.
So you think these political viewpoints Moon Jae-in has is a big part of why South Korea was hit so hard by the coronavirus?
South Korea would not have had an epidemic if Moon Jae-in had closed the borders to arrivals from China. At a very early stage, Moon said that the Chinese and the Koreans were brothers, and that the Koreans would share the suffering of the Chinese. And so arrivals from China spread the coronavirus to South Korea, and that's why the South had an epidemic.
So I've heard the criticism that the reason South Korea is moving closer to North Korea is because President Trump legitimized Kim Jong-un by meeting with him. What do you think of that criticism?
Well, certainly President Trump legitimized Kim Jong-un by meeting with Kim, but that's not the reason why South Korea is moving in this direction. Moon Jae-in was inaugurated in May 2017, and from the get-go, he's been trying to move much closer to Beijing, much closer to Pyongyang. So, yeah, Trump's, I think, fumbled North Korean diplomacy. I don't like it, but it's not the reason why we're having troubles with South Korea. We're having troubles with South Korea because we have essentially someone in the Blue House in Seoul who is very pro-North Korea.
So what does this mean for the U.S. relationship with South Korea?
It means we could lose the alliance with South Korea. South Korea could become essentially a communist state ruled by Pyongyang. The worst outcomes could occur there. And of course, if we lose South Korea, that puts Japan at risk because the Korean Peninsula is a dagger pointed towards the Japanese archipelago. So the U.S. Western Defense Perimeter, which is anchored in the north by Japan and South Korea, could fall apart. And that means that we'd have to face the Chinese not off the coast of East Asia, but much closer to the American homeland.
So what role do you think the Chinese Communist Party has had in exacerbating the situation?
Well, Beijing has really tried to woo Moon Jae-in. And it hasn't really had to try too hard because he was a willing victim to all of this. China always probes our alliance partners looking for weaknesses, and it certainly found one in Moon Jae-in. We have gone through progressive presidents in South Korea who were very sort of pro-North Korea, very friendly to China. We've done that in the past, but Moon has been the worst of them, and therefore everything could fall apart. I actually don't think it will happen. I think the South Korean people will rally, Chris, but this could be a very close-run thing, and we're at much greater risk than most Americans perceive.
Now, as you mentioned, Moon Jae-in is not very popular right now. There's the issue of the coronavirus. How do you think that will impact the election in April and ties with North Korea?
It's not clear what's going to happen in the election. Although Moon is deeply unpopular, and probably more unpopular than opinion polls suggest, nonetheless, his Democratic Party of Korea and its allies are unified, and the opposition conservatives are not. So in that type of situation, even though Moon would normally lose big in these April 15th elections, it's that's not foreordained because elections are about organizing, and Moon is definitely organizing, and the Korean opposition is not.
I mean, I just have to ask, this sounds so incredible to me. Like, what are the arguments Moon and his allies are making to make it seem like South Korea should move towards North Korea and away from the United States?
This is the traditional argument that Koreans should govern themselves, and that there should be no foreign powers in Korea. This is the argument that Kim Jong-un makes all the time, and he makes it because it finds resonance in the South. The South Korean electorate is pretty evenly divided between progressives who are pro-North Korea, pro-China, and those who are so-called conservatives who are very pro-America. We're seeing, a very divided electorate, and anything can happen when it's that close. Although Moon, he just has lost popularity, that doesn't mean he's going to lose the election.
What could the United States do? Because if this is a result of a democratic election, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot the U.S. could do.
I agree with that. There's not much that we can do. We're bystanders in all of this. I mean, we can be popular with certain segments of the Korean population as we are, but that doesn't mean we have influence in the elections. What's going to happen is that there is a sort of small middle, and there are younger voters who really don't care very much about North Korea. They don't believe unification is important. Hopefully, they'll come out and vote and swing the thing against Moon. But you got to remember, though, Moon did get elected by a very big margin. So he knows how to win an election.
Well, thank you very much for joining me again, Gordon.
Thank you, Chris.
And for those of you watching, be sure to check out my previous episode with Gordon on China Uncensored about the impact of the coronavirus on the Chinese economy. Thanks for watching.